When Breath of the Wild came out, it showed what open world games could be. Expansive, interesting, fantastic physics, and most importantly, fun. The feeling you got when you first stepped out of the Shrine of Resurrection was unmatched, and no game would do an open world as good as Breath of the Wild. That is until Tears of the Kingdom came out. Now we first saw Tears of the Kingdom at E3 2019 in a trailer. We didn't see much, but I'm pretty sure everyone was just excited that there was going to be a new Zelda. A couple trailers later, people were sort of disappointed and said that it looked like a DLC more than a game, kind of like Subnautica Below Zero was to the original Subnautica. But when people first started playing it, that entire narrative was completely destroyed. Tears tripled Breath of the Wild's map and did an amazing open world again. So now that we're here, let's compare the two. And before we start, just know that this is my opinion, and there may be some parts of this video that you disagree with, and that's perfectly fine. Not everything I say in this video will be fact, so just don't yell at me in the comments. So I'm going to be talking about Breath of the Wild first because it came out first. Now, as I said, the open world is amazing. I couldn't walk 20 seconds without seeing something I wanted to explore. This doesn't mean that the system is perfect, however, because usually anything that will spark the player's curiosity will lead to a shrine. Now, don't get me wrong, getting to shrines are really fun, and the puzzles in them are also really fun, but it can definitely get repetitive. Overall, though, there were still enough places and things to explore that made it a pretty charming game. Now, moving on to the abilities, they were pretty good. Not anything crazy in today's standards, but at the time they were pretty crazy, especially for a Zelda game. The Sheikah Slate abilities made puzzles very fun, and the champion abilities made combat very fun. It was a nice balanced system that Nintendo almost perfected. One thing that I think we can all agree Breath of the Wild didn't do right is the dungeons. Now personally, I didn't really care that there weren't any traditional Zelda dungeons because Breath of the Wild was such a different game, but were they fun? Kinda. I still would have enjoyed Breath more if there were actual themed and real dungeons, but it didn't affect my playthrough that much. With that being said, other people who have played absolutely hate the Divine Beast. Everyone was expecting traditional Zelda dungeons mixed in with the open world formula, but Nintendo unfortunately didn't do that. What they did do is make some good characters. Breath of the Wild's characters are really good, and it's really fun to travel all around Hyrule so that you can meet up with different people to help you with the Divine Beast. Overall, after playing Breath of the Wild multiple times, I'd give it a 96 out of 100 or a 9.6 out of 10. It's a masterpiece that brought a lot to the table, not just for the Zelda franchise, but for almost every open world game that came out after. If there's one thing you're going to notice, it's that I'm going to be talking about Tears of the Kingdom a lot more than Breath of the Wild. Now the reason for this is because Tears just came out, and after playing it for a while, I think I have more to say. So let me start out by saying, I don't think it's very easy to decide which is the better game. Tears of the Kingdom improved on things like dungeons, bosses, and puzzle solving abilities, but Breath of the Wild still has better combat abilities and had a bigger impact. The point is that it's not a completely easy clean sweep for Tears of the Kingdom, but let's still talk about it. Tears basically tripled Breath's map: the sky, Hyrule, and the depths. Now let me start off by saying all these areas are great, very fun to explore, and a really cool addition to make it feel a lot more unique. I definitely felt more immersed in the world than I did with its predecessor, but there could have been more. Like for example, every area in the depths looks basically the same. There could have been different and interesting biomes to make it more motivating to explore. And the sky could have had more life up there instead of just the same shrine layout copied and pasted. Still, it's awesome that there's new sections of the map, but it's definitely not perfect. Now the base abilities are something that Tears does completely better. Ultra Hand being the one that stands out the most because of what you can do just with the power of your imagination. I've heard people say that the controls are too hard, and while they can take like an hour to get used to, I actually think they're pretty good. You just have to know how shapes work and you'll be fine. I could also talk about Recall, Ascend, and Fuse, but I've already done that in previous videos, so all I'll say here is that they're also great. The combat abilities could have been better though. In Breath of the Wild, they were attached to a certain hotkey on your controller. Here, you have to run up to your companion and then press A to activate the ability, just for every single one to be worse than Breath of the Wild's abilities. Now objectively, they aren't bad if we're ignoring Sidon's ability, but they're probably a step down from the last game. The dungeons and bosses are much better though. Unlike Breath of the Wild, the dungeons are actually themed and seem like a good mix of the open world formula and older dungeons. The puzzles are still similar, but they seem to be a lot more fun this time around. The The bosses are also better because, again, they are actually themed instead of looking like the same thing every single time. Now, with all that being said, there's one thing that Tears of the Kingdom absolutely destroys Breath of the Wild on, and that thing is the content. There is and I mean so much content in this game, to where it makes it difficult to ever be bored. Shrines, light routes, side adventures, side quests, all mixed in with the main quest are just a blast. This doesn't mean that it's impossible to be bored, however, because you have to be a little more creative this time around, and you can't play exactly like you played Breath of the Wild, or else of course you'll be bored. But in conclusion, Tears of the Kingdom is an absolute masterpiece, and I'd give it a 97 out of 100 or a 9.7 out of 10, beating Breath of the Wild only by 1 point. Taking all this into account, I think it's clear that even if Tears may be the better game, both are important and have different strengths. Breath of the Wild is still one of the best games of all time, even with the problems it has and with Tears of the Kingdom outshining it. If you haven't played Tears or Breath yet, you really should, as they'll probably change your opinion on gaming and open world games in general. Also, just to add something I forgot to say in the video, Tears of the Kingdom's caves were one of my favorite parts about the entire game. It was really fun to explore them and get different loot from them, and was a really big part of exploration for me.